Hi BookTube, Sarah here and welcome to my channel. Today I am coming to you with a weekly reads video. This is for week number 47 and it is November the 15th through the 21st. So I read 6 books this week, not too shabby, and I'm going to share them here with you guys. As usual, there will be timestamps in the description box below so you can jump ahead to any of the reviews if you want to. I am also going to be sharing with you what I'm currently reading. Some new books that I got from Netgalley this week, a lot of historical fiction, which is super exciting, and no knitting this week because everything I've been crafting on, or knitting on, I've been pretty much knitting all week, is Christmas gifts. So I can't really show those to you guys. And just a little bit of chatty stuff at the end. So a little bit of a different setting, like I'm not sitting as far back in my bookcase because last week I didn't love the way the tree was looking. Like where it was sitting. So this is, I'm a little bit further out so you can see more of the bookcases and a little glimpse of the tree. I still need to put some more ornaments on it. I've only got a handful right now. We have to dig them out of the boxes in the basement essentially. So hopefully next week we will have a much more decorated tree. But yeah, last week the lights were multicolored and then this week they are clear because I do have the option of switching back and forth. I personally prefer the white lights. Actually, my favorite lights, and I had them years ago on a tree, were just red, green, and white. And I thought that those were so pretty. But regardless, I love my Christmas tree. It makes me happy. And yeah, so let's get into the books that I read this week. So, oh, hold on. Oh, let me lean over here. Okay, great. I do have some physical books to show you guys. So the first book that I finished this week was An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn. This is the third book in the Bridgerton series. I am going to talk about this briefly at the end of this video, or you know what, maybe I'll just talk about it now. But yeah, this is book 3 in the Bridgerton series. I gave this one 4 stars. This is Benedict's story, Benedict and Sophie. This is very much a Cinderella retelling. It is absolutely delightful. If you love retellings of fairy tales and you have not read this one, you really need to, because the beginning of it is just so perfect. I mean, the second half of it veers very far away, of course, from any sort of Cinderella retelling, but the first half is definitely an homage to that story. So essentially, like I said, it's the story of Sophie and Benedict, and Benedict is the second brother in the Bridgertons. If you are unfamiliar with the Bridgertons, this is a very well-known series, very well-known historical romance series by Julia Quinn, and it is about 8 siblings, and their names go in order of their birth. So it's Anthony, Benedict, Colin, Daphne, Eloise, Francesca, Gregory, and Hyacinth. And so each one of the 8 siblings ends up getting their own story. So these span many years. I think Julia Quinn said in an interview at one time, a lot of people don't realize that from book 1 to book 4, it's a 10-year span. And longer than that for books 7 and 8, because in book 1, I think Hyacinth is only like 8. And then in her book, she's in, I think, 18 or 19. So, you know, it spans longer than that, right? So like, yeah, but anyway, back to the story. So, Benedict and Sophie. So it starts off with, we meet Sophie, who is the illegitimate daughter of an earl. And she is left on her father's doorstep. And everybody in the house, all the servants, even her father, knows that she is his daughter, but she's never acknowledged as such because she's illegitimate, and that's just how things were done back then, unfortunately. But he raised her as his ward, and he took care of her. And then when she was about 8 or 9, he got remarried, and to this woman who had, of course, 2 daughters. So there was the wicked stepmother and the wicked stepsisters. And then the father dies. And what Sophie doesn't know is that he leaves her a dowry as well. But she doesn't know this. And you find this out as the reader, but Sophie doesn't know. And her stepmother is being given an extra £4,000 a year or something to make sure that she's looked after until her 20th birthday. But she pretty much turns her into a slave. You know, she is a lady's maid. She polishes the silver. She cleans the chamber pots. She does all the mending. You know, she is pretty much at their beck and call 24/7. And eventually something happens and she ends up taking off. But before all that happens, oh yeah, no, what happens is the ball. Sorry, I'm missing a key part here. So all this happens like right at the very beginning. So I'm not giving any major spoilers. There's a ball. And Sophie ends up going through ways the other servants, kind of give her this old ball gown, and she goes, and of course she meets Benedict. And they have like a 10-minute rendezvous on the terrace, and, they talk and things like that. And then, of course, she has to be home before midnight, before her stepmother and stepsisters get home. So she takes off, and the only thing she leaves behind is her glove, like one of those long, like opera gloves. But of course, it's got the monogram stitched into it of who would have been her grandmother or something like that. So anyway, the story then goes from there, and Sophie and Benedict end up meeting up years again later, but he doesn't remember who she is, and he has been searching for his dream woman, this woman in silver from the ball, and it was so good. I really, really like this one. I mean, like, I gave it 4 stars. It's not my favorite in this series, but I still really, really enjoy it, and this is such a delightful series. Now, that being said, I was participating in the hashtag Meet the Bridgertons read-along that's being hosted by Reads Romance over on Instagram. This week I was supposed to be reading, this was an offer from a gentleman, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is Colin's story, which is my favorite. I have read all of these. These are all rereads for me at this point. And what I noticed is I just had no desire to pick it up. It is my favorite story in the entire series, and I just wasn't interested in picking it up. I am not a binge series reader. I can't do it. I know that there are a lot of you out there who will like pick up book 1 and read your way through all of them, like one after another after another. I thought I was doing pretty good. I'm like, okay, I've read book 1, I've read book 2, I've read book 3. I'm like, oh, this is great. And then with book 4, I just lost steam, and I need breaks between series books. So I think I'm going to hold off until January, and then maybe continue the series in January, maybe read 1 a month. The thing is, though, the reason that we were doing this read along is because the Bridgertons TV show, of course, is coming to Netflix on Christmas Day. And the thing is, though, I'm pretty sure it only follows book 1. So I've reread through book 1. I've reread book 1 3 times, so I'm fine there. I get the plot, but and I said this last week too, this part of me keeps seeing things, and I love the casting. I am really nervous about how much this is going to deviate from the book. I really, really am. Because I'm seeing scenes that never took place in the book. And I mean, Julia Quinn acknowledged the fact that the Queen, I think it's Queen Charlotte, is a character in the TV show. And she acknowledges the fact that she was never in the books. So I'm wondering how much it's going to deviate. As a true fan of this series, that always makes me nervous when something is adapted. So I'm hopeful. The costuming looks great. The location looks great. The casting, again, the casting, Simon, and Lady Danbury. Oh my gosh, fantastic. But a part of me cannot help but be super nervous about how much it's going to change from the show or from the books. So we shall see. But anyway, so that all being said, I am stopping my Bridgertons reread at this point. So you'll see something about that in my December TBR, which is coming later this week. But I love that. And I love these editions that I have that I got from Book Depository. So if you're interested in picking these ones up, these are UK editions. I highly recommend it. They're just absolutely stunning. And I love them. And they're great. Each one is different color. Oh, they look so pretty together on the shelves, let me tell you. So yeah, big fan of this series. But I think I need a break from the Bridgertons right now. So the next book that I finished was Marine Protector by Julianne Lindsey. This one I also gave 4 stars to. This was book number 3 in the Fortress Defense series. I read this as an ebook. It is Harlequin Intrigue number 1956. So I read this for the read-along pardon me, I've got the hiccups, that Nicole over at Who Picked This Book is co-hosting with Jen. And every week we are reading a Julianne Lindsey book. I think this week is a break because it's American Thanksgiving on Thursday. And I think the week of Christmas is also going to be a break, but I'm not absolutely certain. So I've read now the first 3 in this Marine Protector series. This one was really good. Our main characters in this one were Lindy and Cade. And I do have to write down the characters' names because I will forget. So essentially there is a serial killer after Lindy. She has just given birth to her son. He's about 4 or 5 months old. And she's walking in like this park area, to get some exercise after having the baby and lose some of the baby weight as she's saying. And she gets attacked in the parking lot when she's going back to her car from this deranged person. So anyway, she ends up calling, or the detective on the case ends up giving her this business card for this fortress defense, which all of the 4 characters, there's 4 books in this series now. I still need to read the 4th one. It just came out at the beginning of December. That maybe I'll try and slip that in this week and get the last one read. We shall see. But anyway, she ends up calling this fortress defense, and Kate is the one who's available, and he comes out to help her. So it's essentially them trying to find this serial killer, and it was really, really good. I liked it a lot. A lot of suspense, a lot of action in this. There is some romance, of course. There is a relationship between the 2 of them. It's really cute. All 3 of the stories have dealt with the female leads having young children, like babies, essentially. I think all under a year old. So that's been kind of an interesting dynamic, especially when you see these very tough, alpha male military type heroes dealing with this little baby, and it's really cute. Yeah, I like this one a lot. This is a great series. If you like romantic suspense, I recommend that you give these ones a try. They're also clean. There is, I think this one had some adult content, but I'm pretty sure it was off page. So do keep that in mind. The intrigues, same with the romantic suspense. A lot of the lines, except for the desire line, I would say the dare line for sure. I'm trying to think. Are those the only 2? I think so. Oh, and the presents line, excuse me. Those are the only 3 that you are pretty much guaranteed to get graphic on the page in terms of adult content. The rest of them, like I said, the intrigue and the romantic suspense and, the special edition, obviously the love inspired. That goes without saying. The love inspired, for sure, you're not getting any adult content at all. But the rest of them, it's hit or miss. It depends on the author's preference. Like, they can have it in there or not. It's not a stipulation. But Julianne Lindsey doesn't really write that, and I really like that personally. I'm not one of these people who needs that part of the story. I am perfectly fine with it being behind closed doors. I don't need the graphic nature of it, but some people really like that. So if that's your thing and that's what you're looking for, maybe you don't want to read these ones, but I mean, if you're good either way, they're so, so good, and I highly recommend them. The next book that I finished was Love Your Life by Sophie Kinsella. This one is another 4-star read. This one was actually a NetGalley read, so this came out in October of 2020. So thank you very much to Random House for sending me an e-art copy of this book to review. I did, though, listen to it on audio, and this was narrated by Fiona Hardingham, excuse me. And yeah, this one was good. This is the story of Ava and Matt. So Sophie Kinsella, I read another one by her earlier this year that ended up being a 5-star read for me for reasons. It was the right book at the right time. If it hadn't been that situation, if I'd read it at any other time, then it probably would have been a 4-star read like this one. But that one, the last one that I read, which was You Owe Me One, I ended up giving 5 stars to. But regardless, we're not talking about that book. We're talking about this book. And this one is the story of Ava and Matt. So Ava's very flittery through life. She kind of starts things and stops things, and she has a full-time job and she does her job, but she's got all these like other interests. She wants to be an aromatherapist. She wants to write a novel. She has this dog named Harold. Harold is just such a delight in this book. I love Harold. So anyway, she ends up going to this writer's retreat for a week in Italy. And while she's there, she meets a guy by the name of Matt. And the 2 of them kind of have this little bit of a romantic vacation fling. They come home and realize, when they realize they're both from London, and they come home and decide to continue the relationship. The problem is that both Ava and Matt are vastly different people. I mean, if she says, perfect example, she's a vegetarian, he's a meat eater, he prefers his room. He has a flat that he shares with his friends, that his bedroom in the flat is freezing cold, and his mattress is very, she says it's like trying to sleep on wood, like this mattress, whereas she likes it nice and warm and cozy, and she's got a soft feather mat. You know what I mean? Like, they're very, very different. He's very much a workaholic. She kind of flitters through life. So the entire story is pretty much their relationship and how they are trying to make it work. What I really like about Sophie Kinsella's stories is that the romance aspect in them is not quick. These are not relationships that they meet, and 2 weeks later they're pledging their love for each other. Now, in this case, they were. In a way, it was insta-love, but they knew they cared about each other, but could they live together? Like, could they form a relationship and a life together? That was the whole premise of this. And this took place over the course of a year plus. And that's, again, like what I was saying, that's what I really like about her books. That, you know, you really have time to get into the relationship, to really draw out the relationship. You know, it's wonderful, and I really, really like it. You know, it's almost, when I was reading it, it's almost like, you know, if somebody wrote a romance and it was about this person going to Italy to do a writing course and meets this guy, and the two of them end up meeting and falling in love, and it's an insta-love kind of a situation. They have a fling. They end up coming home and saying, we're going to stay together, and it's going to be wonderful. This is what happens after. Do you know what I mean? When real life comes into that equation. There are so many stories like that first beginning half. That's where the story ends, is when they get back from the airport and, you know, life's all happy. But to see the after effect and what ends up going on after, it was so good. They have friends. Matt and Ava have this group of friends. They each have a group of friends. The friends are just such a delight. I love them. So many personalities. Like, this part of me now wants to read stories about each of them, because they're just so wonderful. There are some really, really funny parts in this too. Sophie Kinsella can really write some great chicklet type humor. And as I said, Harold the dog is a delight. Love him. So yeah, I highly recommend picking this one up. It was so much fun. If you're a fan of Sophie Kinsella, you definitely need to check this one out. And the next one that I finished, for something completely different, excuse me, sorry. It's so dry because of the heat being on, because it's cold. Guys, it's snowing out. It's so exciting. You know, oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Anyway, the next book that I finished was The Girls Who Went Away by Anne Fessler. So this is the hidden history of women who surrendered children for adoption the decades before Roe v. Wade. This one I gave 4 stars to as well. I ended up listening to this one on audio. It was narrated by Colleen Marlowe. And this I read for, of course, Nonfiction November. So this was a difficult read, you guys. This was a very difficult read. It's not heartwarming at all, really. But it was extremely interesting. And I really recommend, especially women, or parents even, and I'm not even a parent, or if you're interested in history at all, this was so good. So essentially what it was is the author has collected and spoken to and collected stories from all of these women who back in the 50s and 60s ended up being forced to give up their children for adoption. So they got pregnant out of wedlock, and back then they ended up having, a lot of them ended up having to go to these maternity homes where they would go and then have their baby and then essentially, no choice, sign their child over for adoption, and then that was it. And they were told, you're going to forget about this, you're going to go on to have other children, this is just a blip, and then they were expected to come back and just go about their life like nothing happened. It showed how a lot of them were treated, even within the hospital themselves. Like, this one woman was just left, until she started screaming for a nurse because she was in labor, and the nurse is like, oh, did you need me? Like, they were treated very much like second-class citizens just because that they were unwed. This other lady talks about being in the hospital and the way she was being treated versus this other woman who was also in the hospital, who was a year older than her. So this girl was 17 or 18, and this other girl was 19, but she was married. And because she was married, it was okay. And, they brought her flowers and congratulated her and called her a mother. And, oh, your baby, your baby, your baby. Whereas this one, it was just the baby, not your baby, but the baby. It talks a lot about some of these women who have now found their children years later, which is wonderful. Those were the parts that kind of made it easier to read when you got those stories about them finding their children later. But the fact that they were told by their parents, by their teachers, by their religious, whoever, their priest or their father or nuns, that you have to give these children, they had no choice. And if they decided last minute, no, I cannot give that child up, they were then told they had to pay for all of the hospital care that they've had, before they can get the child back. And this one woman talked about, because her child was in foster care, that she was going to have to pay for all of her time in the hospital, it would have come to like $1,000. And I mean, back in 1960 something, that was a lot of money. That's a lot of money now, in my opinion. And then for every day she couldn't pay it, she was getting an extra $6 a day charge for her son being in foster care. Like, it was brutal what happened to these poor girls. And of course the double standard coming in of the guys being like, you know what, they can just go back to school, they don't have to worry about it, nothing happens to them. One girl talks about the fact that the guy who got her pregnant ended up actually having 3 girls pregnant at the same time or something like that. A lot of these girls do talk about the fact that they were essentially raped in, this wasn't all the time consensual. So yeah, it was a difficult read, but it was so interesting. And it's hard to say that you like a book like this, but I found it very eye-opening. I mean, I knew that this happened, but until you actually hear the stories from the mothers who went through this and how much it affected their lives, a lot of them suffered from depression. They had a hard time forging good relationships. A lot happened. So if this is anything at all that sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend that you pick it up. Yeah, it was a very, very moving read and a very important read, in my opinion. And second last book, I started and finished this one yesterday, was Claimed by a Steele by Brenda Jackson. And I gave this one 3.5 stars. This I did listen to as well on audio. It was narrated by Ron Butler. This is book number 13 in the Forged in Steel series. This was a NetGalley read. This came out back in May of 2020. Thank you very much, Harlequin, for sending me an e-art copy of this one to review. Harlequin Desire number 2731. So this is the story of Delphine and Gannon. And he runs his family's trucking empire. Like, if you can't tell from the cover, he's actually standing in front of like a big rig, like the front grill of a big rig truck. So he runs this, multi-million-dollar trucking company. And Delphine is a news reporter, and she is interviewing him for an article in a magazine or something like that. So they end up meeting, and he kind of falls for her, but he's known as a playboy. And, all of his brothers, he's the youngest of 6, and all of his brothers were known as playboys, and all their books came before his, and they all ended up finding love and getting married. And, as soon as he meets Delphine, he's like, oh, I'm not even looking at another woman, kind of an idea. And then he ends up having to do this run in one of his trucks from Arizona to Florida, and invites her to come with him. And of course, a lot of adult content happens, and they end up spending some time together in Miami. And I mean, it was fun. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. I listened to it in a day. It was 5 hours on audio. It was fun. It was sexy. The characters were great. Brenda Jackson always is such a great, great writer. If you have not read her books, I highly recommend it. This one being book 13, though, I mean, you get introduced to all of his brothers and stuff like that. So maybe read the other ones first if you're interested. But yeah, I did enjoy this one. I mean, 3.5 stars. It's a better than average rating from me. It was enjoyable. It was a fun way to spend a few hours yesterday afternoon. And the last book that I finished this week, I loved this so much. I did. Okay, so I finished reading The Tourist Attraction by Sarah Morgenthaler. So this is the first book in the Moose Springs, Alaska series, guys. I gave this 5 stars. I loved it. I was looking at reviews on Goodreads, and everybody was like, yeah, it was good. It was enjoyable. They didn't hate on it. But I don't know what it was, but I absolutely loved it. I thought that this was so charming and so delightful. So this is the story of Zoe and Graham. And as I said, it takes place in Moose Springs, Alaska. So Graham is a lifelong resident of town. And he runs a diner called the Tourist Trap. And it's kind of a bit of a joke. He doesn't like dealing with anybody. And the character reminded me very much of, is his name Luke? The guy who runs the diner in Gilmore Girls? That's kind of who he reminded me of. That kind of gruff, almost you're wasting my time coming into my establishment and paying me money for me to serve you kind of an idea. But yeah, that's kind of who the character reminded me of. Very, very gruff. Yeah, grump. It says here, Serena Bowen, a unique voice and a grumptastic hero. He was very grumptastic. He serves like 2 things at his like diner, a burger and a reindeer dog, and that's pretty much it. And all these tourists come in from this lodge that's up on the mountain in their town. It's a very, very well-to-do, like, people of money can stay there. Everything is uber expensive and blah, blah, blah. So he's pretty much, like, he doesn't like tourists, but he really doesn't like these ultra wealthy tourists. So he thinks the tourists are kind of ruining his little small town. But in reality, the tourists are what's keeping the town alive, because without them, there wouldn't be an influx of money, right? Or jobs at this hotel for a lot of the residents. So at the beginning of the book, he meets, or he's already met Lana. Lana comes a couple times a year, and her and Graham kind of have a little flirty friend relationship. But this time, Lana has brought her friend Zoe, and Zoe is an absolute delight. She comes in, she's got her glasses that keep sliding down her nose, her Mickey Mouse sweater. She is not rich at all. She had to save up for 10 years to take this trip to Alaska, and she's staying in the hotel with Lana, but she's staying in her room, like sleeping on the couch. So she's not even paying for her hotel. It was just to pay for her flight and like any extra spending money, right? So she's a waitress at a truck stop back home in Illinois, and her and Graham meet, and it is a bit of insta-love. And I know I saw a lot of reviewers complaining about that it was insta-love. And yes, it was, but the difference was, yes, he really fell for her, and I think it would, and definitely vice versa, but nothing happens until almost the very end of the book. So she's there for 2 weeks. They meet on her first day. So it's within 2 days of her leaving that anything actually physical happens between the two of them. They spend a lot of time together, a lot of flirting together, and he kind of takes her around town to like the local places that the tourists don't know about, and, shows her around his little slice of Alaska, and it was just a delight. He has a dog by the name of Jake who's blind, and Jake is just so, he's a border collie, and he's just the sweetest dog. He's always dressing him up in different outfits and hats and things, and I kind of love that. But there is absolutely no adult content on the page in this book either. Yes, something does happen between the two of them, but nothing graphic on page. And again, I really like that. I really like that. It's not needed all the time. There are certain books where it works. There are certain books, certain types of books where I definitely think that, that kind of a thing is warranted. That's kind of what the story is about. But this was so, so charming. Now, there is a lot of sexual innuendo in this book. I can tell you that for sure. But as for the actual event that happens, or events in some cases, nothing is on the page. And I loved it. I absolutely love this book. And I am so excited. Spoiler alert, I am reading the second book in December. And I cannot wait. And I do have the third book from the publisher to read as an e-arc that I will be reading in January. So yay. Yay, yay, yay. I love this, guys. If you have not read this one yet, please read this one. It was so, 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 so good. So that's all the books that I finished this week. So what am I currently reading? I've got 3 books currently on the go. There's one of them. Let me reach. Sorry. So the first book that I just started last night was Colton 911 in Hot Pursuit by Jerry Croteau. This is a Harlequin romantic suspense. This was sent to me by the author. So thank you so much. I am now on her list for any new books that come out, that she will send them to me. So I'm super excited. This one just came out at the beginning of December, I think. Or beginning of November. So I'm very excited about getting to it. It is, I think, the 5th or 6th in a series, but that's okay. You know me, I jump in at any point in series. It doesn't bother me. But of course, I probably will go back and read the rest of them. But yeah, so far, I'm not even through the first chapter yet. So I really can't tell you guys too much about it just yet. But of course, I will talk about it next week when I finished it. The next one that I'm reading, this is a reread for me, and I'm reading this with Rainy over at Rainy Day Reads. We're buddy reading it, and I forgot how much I love this book. It's another nonfiction for Nonfiction November. This is Unmentionable, The Victorian Lady's Guide to Sex, Marriage, and Manners by Teresa O'Neill. This is such a delightful book. If you have not read this one, you need to read this one. This was the first book I ever read for Nonfiction November. This is the book that drew me into nonfiction. I didn't really read it. I always figured it was more like textbooky stuff that you would have read in school, and I really didn't like school, to be honest. But this one showed me that, no, nonfiction can be great. And this is hilarious. Hilarious. If you're a woman, you will totally appreciate a lot of the things in here. It is so, so good. And there are like pictures and stuff. Like, It's like, don't be fat. The chapter is diet, you little bag of pudding. Very tongue-in-cheek. You know, some people might find the humor to be a little crude, but I don't know, maybe that's just my personality. I think it's hilarious, and I absolutely love it. Like old ads from stuff like in the Victorian times. So essentially it's what would happen. The book is written as if you are a modern day woman and you time travel back to Victorian either England or America, and you now had to, it's essentially a like user's manual for like if you were dropped into Victorian times, how you would survive as a woman. So interesting. I'm really loving it. And then the last book that I'm currently reading is for the Book Sisters book club that of course I'm a part of with Chloe and Bree, and link to both of them below. Chloe is from Always Booked here on YouTube, and Bree is Falling for Romance over on Instagram, and we run a book club. I'll leave link to the book club as well below. This coming Saturday, we're going to be talking about this book. Now, it's a very short book, and it's available on Kindle Unlimited. And it's called I Work in a Public Library by Gina Sheridan. So these are like stories from the stacks or something, and it's pretty much, this woman has written down like funny things that have happened to her and other librarians over time, short little vignettes, little snippets, if you will, of conversations. And the chapters are all broken out as per the Dewey Decimal System. So it's really charming. This is going to be a very quick read. It's like right around 150 pages. I started it when I was having my breakfast this morning. I predict I will finish it by the end of the day. So I think that's the way it's going to go, but we shall see. But yeah, so far this is really cute. So now into the new books that I got this week from NetGalley. Cheers. I think it's 8. And a lot of historical fiction, like I said. So I don't know a lot about all of these, but these were sent to me by the publisher this week, and I'm super excited about all of them. And I'm going to give you, of course, the title, as well as the release date and the publisher. And of course, I'll have a picture popped up here for you guys. So the first one, as I was just talking about the tourist attraction, or the tourist arrangement, Enjoy the View by Sarah Morgenthaler. This comes out on January the 19th, 2021. Thank you so much to Source Books for sending me an e-art copy of this one. Although I think what I might do, because I own both books 1 and 2 in print book, I think I'm going to go ahead and pre-order this book in print as well. So it'll get read at the end of January after it's released, because I just really love reading it in print format. The next one I got is another Christmas book. There's very few of them now, like they're just sprinkling them in here and there. And this is Right Before Christmas, but it's W-R-I-T-E, like Right Before Christmas by Julie Hammerle. This comes out on the 30th of November, so just a few, like next Tuesday, next Monday. Thank you very much to Entangled for sending me an e-art copy of this one to review. We have, now here come the 4, there's going to be 4 historical fiction novels, not historical romance, but historical fiction. So we have Find Me in Havana by Serema Burdick. This comes out January the 12th, 2021. Thank you very much, Harlequin, for sending me an e-art copy of this one. It's about, I think it's either an actress or a singer, and it's like Miami and Cuba in, I think, the 1920s, but don't quote me. The Girl from the Channel Islands. This comes out on February 2nd, 2021. Thank you again, Harlequin, for sending me this one as well. This one is a World War II novel. We have The Lost Apothecary, by Sarah Penner. This comes out on the 2nd of March, 2021. Thank you again, Harlequin. I don't think... This one is labeled as a historical fiction, but a part of me wonders if there's some magical realism in there as well. I shall find it when I read it. And then the last of the historical fiction is The Last Bookshop in London by Madeline Martin. Comes out April 20th, 2021. Thank you again, Harlequin, for sending me this one. And this is another World War II era historical fiction. And then we have A Murder Between the Pages by Amy Lillard. This comes out the 24th of November, which is Tuesday. This coming Tuesday. Thank you to Poison Independent Press for sending me an e-art copy of this one. It's a cozy mystery. It looks super duper cute. And last but not least, The Amish Baker's Rival by Marie E. Bast. This comes out on December the 29th, 2020. And thank you again to Harlequin for sending me an e-art copy of this one. It's a love-inspired Amish romance. These are always just such a delight. So that is pretty much all that I have, you guys. No book haul this week, but if you saw yesterday on my channel, I did a live book haul because I had like just under 20 books plus some bookmarks I wanted to show you guys. So if you want to see my physical book haul from this last week, I will leave that linked below as well, so you can go ahead and check that out. As I said, it was done live. It was fun. I like doing live ones if I can. So yeah, so there's that. Now, just chatty bits here. So last Monday at work, my manager came up to me because the case counts in Toronto were going really high, and we were all predicting that this was going to happen, that there was going to be a lockdown. And she asked me on Monday before all this happened, and she said, "Are you interested in working from home on Fridays?" And I said, "Yes, please." Because I work till 7 o'clock at night, especially on a Friday, it's so nice to be able to like already be at home and not have to drive home in the dark on a Friday night. So on Friday, I was here working from home, and she said to me on Thursday before I left, she said, "Take everything you're going to need. Like all your files, all your paperwork." I don't need a lot. I have like 3 file folders of stuff, just to make sure. So I took all that home with me, and thankfully, because they announced on Friday afternoon that the city of Toronto is now in lockdown for a minimum of 28 days. So if the numbers don't start going down, if we don't, flatten the curve or whatever it is, then we could be in lockdown longer. So for the foreseeable future, for the month of December, I'm working from home. This is my new office. Let me tell you guys, on Friday I had the Christmas tree on. I had my lights up. So cheerful. It was so cheerful. I'm sorry. There's something to be said about sitting in a cubicle by yourself. Like, I'm still by myself up here. And really, I did not notice any difference between working from here or working from the office. The only thing I don't have is a printer. And the printer I don't need. It's more of a convenience factor. And I do have a printer in the basement that I said to my husband I could just pull up and just put over here at the side of my desk. And the few things that I might need to print up, I can do that. Like I said, it's more of a convenience. Like when I'm doing some data entry stuff, I like to print out the document, and I work better from a sheet of paper instead of like, I know some people will put it like on 2 different screens, but I'm running off of like 1 laptop. So I might just use the printer for that. The ink isn't very expensive, so I'm not too worried about that. But anyway, that's pretty much the only inconvenience. So at least until Christmas, I'm going to be at home. So yeah, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the fact that I can wear yoga pants every day and comfy sweatshirts and sit here in my Christmas book room and just be cheerful and happy for the month of December and still get all my work done, which is always good. Like, that was the thing, is like, I'm not going to slack, clearly. I like my job. I really do. I like what I do. And I like helping people, which is kind of what I'm doing without giving out, I of course do not talk about what I do here because it is private. But yeah, I'm really, really happy to be working from home. Let's put it that way. So anyway, that is pretty much, oh yeah, and it's snowing out, you guys. That's always exciting right now. It's like I'm just staring out the window and it looks so pretty. It's accumulating too. Oh, that's always fun. They said 5 to 10 centimeters of snow today. So for my American friends, that is 2 to 4 inches of snow. So yay. But anyway, what else was I going to say? Oh yeah. So I'm vlogging this weekend. So that vlog is going to go up on Tuesday. And then on Thursday is going to be my December TBR. Yay. And then on Friday, we've got part 2 of my Harlequin bookshelf tour. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, guys, that is all that I have today. Oh, and the last thing is on Saturday on Chloe's channel, I think it's at 3 p.m. Eastern. Watch my Instagram feed and I'll get you guys like the actual time. But I'm pretty sure it's 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, or whatever time zone Chloe and Brie are in. I don't know. It's an hour back from me. We are doing the live show for the book club. So for that, I work in a public library. Pardon me. That book by Gina Sheridan. We're going to be discussing that along with some other things. Like we were talking about what we could talk about because it's kind of a shorter book. So we were saying like maybe talk about just like things that have happened to you personally, stories about being in school and, in public and stuff. So I think it's going to be a really fun and funny discussion. So do join us for that as well. But anyway, That's it, guys. I will talk to you all in my next video. Take care and happy reading. Bye, guys.